The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, UNU Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
What up, everybody? Welcome to Talk Like Paranormal with Shannon and Mr. Bill. I am Mr. Bill.
And I am Shannon.
And along with us, we've got...
Jake.
Just Jake.
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 Jake from State Farm.
Okay.
Can I get a discount? Are you wearing khakis? He sounds hideous.
Well, he's a man, so...
And he's wearing khakis. So everybody, I want to start off everything since I can't talk. A shout out to all the men and women in uniform out there serving around the world, doing what they do to keep us safe. You guys are awesome. Thank you for everything you do, and come home safe to us, please.
Yes. God bless all of you.
Amen to that. So, what do we got tonight? Tonight's going to be, I think we're going to be all over the board because each one of us is kind of looking at something different.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so what are you looking at, Shannon? What's your topic for tonight?
Well, one of the ones that I found interesting, because I don't really know much about it, is table tilting.
What page is that on?
I think it's like 12 or 13.
Yeah, that one's on 13.
Let me jump over to that one, because I know where mine's at, so... So why don't you get started?
Not really familiar with it. I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never really read up on it, so...
Okay, so...
Here we go!
Hold on, it's just... So,
Did he just shush me?
Oh, mm-hmm. I've heard of this, and there was... it's not on TV anymore, but it was back in like 2005, 2006-ish era, and it was actually a British show. And at the time, I loved the show. Now, it's like most of the paranormal shows are. You watch it and you're just kind of like, okay, nothing special. And in that particular show, there were quite a few times where they would do table tilting experiments. And in that particular context, it was usually when they were performing seances. And so, oftentimes what you would see with table tilting is just like a traditional seance. You have the people sitting around the table and they have their hands on the table and essentially you have someone, which in this case of the show was usually a medium, who would call out to any spirits in the location that were believed to be there. And they would ask for the table to rock, they would ask for the table to be lifted up. It's different things to happen to get the table to move one way or another. And then, regardless of how people feel when they see things like this happen on these types of TV shows, there were times where the table would actually completely lift up off the table, or off the ground, an inch or two, and then move a foot across the room. But that's about all I know. It's just a broad term that refers to the movement of a table by spirits using their energy and the energy of the people sitting around the table during the table tilting experiment.
So, kind of what I know about it. It was also known, there was different terms for it. There was table tipping, there was table tilting, table tapping, table turning. There was also all sorts of different things on it. They used the table to communicate, like you said. It was actually started a long time ago. In the 1850s, I want to say, is when it first came out through the modern spiritualism started in Europe, and then it reached over. It started in the earlier 1800s. Then it went from Europe to America in the early 1850s. So the most popular method of consulting spirits was for several people to sit around a table with their hands resting palm down, not pressing, just lightly sitting there, and wait for the table to move. If they did the experiment correctly and was successful, the table would rotate or move or rattle or even, like you said, rise up in the air. Most of this was done, and it was Houdini who actually was the one who said, you know what? Something's not right. And he actually went through the whole process of going to these mediums that were doing it, and they were making tons and tons of money off it, and found out that there was a lot of them who actually, when they'd sit down at their table, because a lot of these gypsies and mediums and stuff, they're all flamboyant and stuff, would wear lots of rings. And some of them on their middle finger, they would, because that's your the base of your middle finger is kind of the strongest part of your hand to use other than your thumb, but your hand is laying flat. What they have done is they've driven a screw or a nail into the table just so far down, so it's just barely sticking up, and they could hook it with their ring finger, with their finger, that ring. And then they could actually manipulate and make the table slide or, pick up on corners and everything. They actually got pretty good at it. And Houdini actually called out a lady who was using, underneath her shirt sleeve, she had a strap underneath her arm with this little rod that came out into a hook. So when she'd slide her hands up, the hook would go underneath the table. So he asked that to be formed in a completely different way. And the one I love is he asked that the medium not touch the table other than her pinkies. Just the ends of her fingers. Everyone else had pencils laying down on the table, and you put your hands on top of the pencils lightly to see if they could feel anything. And Houdini said he could not debunk this one because with the medium either not touching the table or with just her pinkies on the table moved. And no one else, they had all the witnesses around, no one else touched it. The table actually came up off the ground and slammed down, is what it did. So it actually, he showed her as the fraud for what she was, but then still had questions on why did it happen.
Right.
So I've actually tried this. I did it just out of pure, I want to give it a shot and see what the hell happens, up at Edinburgh Manor. In the basement, there was an old table sitting in it would have been the storm shelter down in the basement. And I had a bunch of ladies sit around the table. A bunch of us stayed back, so I wasn't even touching the table. I was actually behind people. I had them move the table. I had them use flashlights and check the table. I said, if we're going to do this, we're going to try this. I've never done it before. And they all put their hands on the table, just lightly. I just stabbed myself in the foot. That sucked. You never know what's going to happen on here. So they all had their hands on the table. They'd taken their gloves off because it was wintertime. It was cold in there, and I told them, we won't stay long. And as they were sitting there, the one lady goes, "Stop touching me. Stop touching my hand." I guess it was her sister or somebody sitting next to her. She goes, "I'm nowhere near you." And she said she felt like someone's hand had laid on top of her hand. And just as she went, "Stop touching me," for the third time, the entire side of that table came up and slammed down on that one, like two legs came up and slammed down. Now, I didn't do it. If one of them did it, then bad on them. But it shocked everybody enough that everybody jumped back, but the lady went to move, and she couldn't remove her one hand, that it felt like something was holding her hand down. Couldn't remove it. She couldn't remove it until her sister just did touch her, and then her hand released from the table, and then we all decided it was a break time, and they went outside and smoked about 400 cigarettes. I don't think they smoked when they first got there, but they did after that. Right. So I have used it not knowing what the hell I was doing, but gave it a shot, and it did work, which was kind of freaked me out. And you play it off kind of going, "Oh yeah, that's perfect. That's what it's supposed to do." In the back of my mind going, "Holy shit! Did that just happen in front of me? What the hell is going on around here?"
Right.
So it's something to try. I mean, if nothing happens, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. But there's one part of this article that says, not to be outdone by the scientific community, the church railed against table tilting, claiming it to be the work of Satan. But
just like everything else.
Yeah. But that was in the 1850s, and now we're no longer, we're more open now. We're more open to accepting of things, and as humans, we can accept things that
I will kill you.
That will just come along and want to come out and play with us, unless you're, of course, one of the people that doesn't want to accept it. And then, well, hey,
you're on your own.
Yeah. So table tilt is something different. It's a little bit. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it's when it does work that it makes you kind of go, what the hell?
Right.
Everything else.
Yeah. So what else? What you got, Jake? Let's break yours. What article did you pick?
I didn't pick one. I was just looking at the one that you had. There was one that I wanted to look at a little bit, and that one was on page 12, I believe. Maybe it was page 9. Where'd it go? And that one, again, I didn't really read through the article. It was just the title that I thought was kind of interesting. And it's actually called Spirits Amongst the Dead. Because when I read that title, I was confused by that a little bit. Because when we, as paranormal investigators, think about hauntings and things of that nature, we tend to think about it in the form of spirits being the people who are dead that are connected to that location. But now that reading this title, I'm not so sure that that's necessarily what it's referring to.
Well, if you go down a little bit in the article, it says encounters with spirits in funeral homes. It's kind of what they're talking about. As most funeral homes are a labyrinth of hallways, corridors, and rooms and chapels, it's in the maze of the first few evenings. When people walk around in there, they hear a lot more footsteps, sometimes laughter, sometimes crying. Now, are these the spirits that are accepting the dead in and helping them cross? Are they spirits of other family members? Are they lost spirits? Are they lost souls? Did I just create a movie? That would be a kick-ass movie. That would really work.
But I mean, we've talked about that before. I know you and I Bill, have had that conversation before, where when people are close to the point of death, yep. Whether it be natural causes or otherwise, there is a belief that their deceased loved ones are there to welcome them.
Is that what would be at the funeral homes?
It could be. I think that's the argument could be made that would be. But then at the same time, I also wonder if, because you mentioned that you saw where it was talking about hearing crying. Could that be, just because it's a funeral home, could that be a little bit of the emotions that have soaked in to the building itself from funerals that have happened in that location? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
So, just because the article mentions it being in a funeral home, what I would question is how much of it is spirits that are actually there, and how much of it is emotion and memories and things like that have soaked into the building itself, and then those are manifesting themselves.
Shannon, do you think they could be residual?
They could be. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out.
It's got so used to being there? That it doesn't know anything else?
It could be. I don't really know what to say on that one. I didn't read any of this article either.
Huh. It kind of makes you think, and that kind of, I hate to say it, but leads into the article I was looking at, which was on page number 1. It's the third one down. Oh, sorry, third one down. Fourth one down. Well, no, it's third one because there's only 3. Why are certain locations haunted? What makes them haunted? Well, why would they be? Everybody always thinks, when you're looking at haunted locations, you're looking at old, dark, creepy. Nobody lives there anymore. Nobody does.
Really bad happened there back in the day.
Yeah.
That's not always true.
No, because we get a lot of things where, when we do our private ones, where someone will call up and go, hey, something's wrong. Well, when was your house built? Last year? Well, let's take a look at some things. What was here before? And it just doesn't have to be an old jail cell or a old house or, an old building. And it doesn't actually, and this is one that I always thought, it doesn't actually have to be the location that's haunted. Mm-hmm. It could be, we typically see 3 categories of hauntings: either haunted people, haunted places, or haunted objects. One, you could have 1, you could have 2, or you could have all 3. When you're in that location, you may find them when you're doing your research. Mm-hmm. The biggest misconception that places usually become haunted is because, like I said, they're dark and like Shannon said, terrible events took place in the house. People died there, like battlefields, asylums, mm-hmm. places where murders took place, like the
Willis-Axe murder house.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, Post Town is almost like a prime example here in Ohio because nobody's ever died in the school. They've died elsewhere and somehow came back to haunt the school. And then you got before the building was even built, with them using the makeshift triage on the property back behind it.
Is that when the train happened? The train accident?
Yeah, both train accidents, yeah. But I mean, like, that was way before the school was even built. Mm-hmm. So after the school being built, I mean, the majority of what we've caught there is children. And there's no past, if you research it, there's no past deaths of children passing in that school or even on the property.
But, so could that go back to what Jake said with the funeral homes? Could that have been the emotions that have gone through there when children were not having, if things happened to them there, and maybe they haven't even died yet, maybe they're still alive, but, I'm sorry, when they died, would they have come back there because that's the only thing that's the worst part of their life that they ever remember?
Or could it be that's the best?
Could be the happiest, yeah.
Because you mentioned, Bill, that the 3 types of hauntings. One of them is objects. When we see hauntings with objects, it's usually because whoever or whatever is haunting the object has some sort of emotional attachment. So when, Shannon, when you're talking about the school, think about what happens in a school on a day-to-day basis, right? During the school year, kids spend more time there than in their own homes.
Yeah.
Oftentimes. That's where their friends are. That's where, depending on the class and depending on the student, there could be frustrations. There could be, arguments between friends. So then there's a little bit of heightened emotion that's there. And so all of those go into someone feeling connected to that place. Now, could it have been that the children were attached to something that was there before the school? I think that's entirely plausible. But the point I'm trying to make is it may not, like you said, always be something that's happened on the property. It could have been an event that happened away from the property, but whoever was involved in that event was connected to the property that they now are found.
Like Shannon was saying, there was how many 2 train accidents, Shannon?
There was, one in 1900 on July 4th, and then exactly 10 years later on July 4th in 1910, there was another one.
So they used that property as they put
The makeshift triage out back.
And didn't they have bodies there for claiming? On one of them?
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of history on that property.
And then, that, I mean, Angelina reached out to me. We had her on the show one time.
Yep.
She reached out to me about a week ago, and there's some other stuff that's, like, surfacing from, before the school was built. There was a family of 4, I guess, that were removed out of the ground before the school was even built. That's what she told me about a week ago. I guess there's like 600 pages to this link she told me it's the history of the property and stuff that I haven't got to read up on yet, but that's a project with her and I and a couple other people in the works, actually.
Cool.
But yeah, you got the makeshift triage, and then when Tyler first went there, before we did an event there, he even said something about there were military men buried there too, somewhere on the grounds. So
that bugs me that they were actually digging up graves to put the building there.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the school was built in 1937. I think it was 1937.
So now let's take that energy that you guys we're talking about, and let's move to the second one. Well, the first one. Well, the last one. Sorry, the haunted objects, things that are energies they attach to. My thing is, I would like to go to where there's a museum where what the hell is that noise?
That's my dog running in circles.
Oh, there's a museum that has 2 of the large girders that were in the World Trade Center. They have them in there and some people's private property in there.
Oh, wow.
In there. So how much energy is contained in those from September 11th? I mean, just to bring it up to date, there's got to be a lot of things. In the museum, they've also got, why would you have this? They have the mattress of a victim who died in a residential fire in there.
Why would you even keep that?
It's in a museum, and it doesn't say what museum this is. Oh, wait, hold on. I guess I didn't look at the right spot. It's the Denver Fire Museum. It was one of the oldest firehouses in the Mile High City, and now home to the Denver Fire Department's collection of historical artifacts and memorabilia. I think we need to go there. That would be, oh my God.
Oh, let's go.
Okay.
I'm on board.
So, and then the next part of this article, which kind of hits home for me, it says firefighters encounter a great deal of death and trauma while going on the course of their daily duties. It is a belief that some of these leave a residual, quote-unquote, psychic scar, sometimes, one that can be detected later a later time and perceived by eyewitnesses as paranormal activity. And that brought up something of, I've helped remove several bodies from burnt buildings because I am a volunteer firefighter. I've done I've done a lot of little things like that. But then I go back even further. At one point in time, when I was in the military, I was actually helping remove dead bodies out of equipment over in Desert Storm.
Wow.
So that. I like I said off the air before we came on, I'm kind of screwed later on because I never know when that is going to come back and get me. So, it really does make me, start people thinking, or I hope it does, about the locations are not just always the locations. And we have a lot of people that come out for, say I have something, that's not right in my house. It just doesn't seem like it wants to be here, or Jake, you've heard Michelle say it. It's not supposed to be there, and for some reason it can't leave. Well, that's one of the questions we have always asked when we do our our intake. When we're asking questions to these people, going, "Did you recently get a family heirloom? Did you recently bring something into your home?" And they'll start thinking about going, well, yeah, I brought that old clock in here. Well, whose was it? Well, it was in the bedroom where my grandma died. Well, okay, can something be attached to that? Or, you got somebody who, and I know somebody who has this, his uncle was murdered. He owns the murder weapon. He bought it at an auction. Okay, you just brought something in that's killed someone. God only knows who else, but not only that, was somebody in your family.
Right.
What can be attached to that? How much pain is attached to something like that? And how much emotion can that put off into your home or into something you have with you every single day? I mean, I've got plenty of empty Jack Daniels bottles that I know are crying. So, but just like this little Furby sitting up on my shelf. What's attached to him? And if he blinks right now, I'm leaving. By the way, he's still in the box. Don't, Furby. No,
I got one that doesn't work anymore.
He's still sealed in the box from the factory.
I would use him. I would use him as a trigger object. Yes.
That is a good idea. Leave him in the box.
Oh yeah. If he happens, turn him on in the box. If he happens to go off while the box is closed, you know that shit ain't right.
That might be a good idea. We might have to try that sometime. So, why are locations haunted? Why is my neighbor's house not haunted like I want it to be, and mine is?
Well, we know why yours is, because you call out spirits.
Oh no! Before we even got into this field, when we first moved into this house, there was things here. We hear talking out in the hallway. We used to jump up and get out of bed and run out here and what the hell, looking for people outside, trying to figure out what was going on, what was going on. And then we started realizing, it wasn't until we got into doing this that we got to the point where we just sit up in bed and go, y'all got to shut up. We got to get some sleep. Or, please take this downstairs or outside and talk. And they do, which is freaky, which is kind of cool. They're very polite spirits.
Well, you guys don't give them any shit. You ask politely and kind of live amongst them,
Oh, yeah. We try. I like them. They're happy. They're happy.
They listen.
They're happy people.
They're laughing at you right now. Like, he has no clue what the hell he's talking about.
He gonna have a nasty ass dream tonight. Watch this.
Talking outside his door today.
Trust me, I won't hear him. I can't hear crap when I'm asleep. I don't even remember any dreams. So, but that's about to change.
Oh, I'm a light sleeper.
I can sleep through Paladin howitzers going off right next to me. I can sleep right through it. So, yeah, when I'm out, I'm out. When I sleep, I should say.
And see, to go back to the subject about the haunted places or whatever, a lot of like the desks and stuff, the school desks and everything, a lot of them were donated to that school. They're not original from the school.
So what did they bring in with them?
I don't know.
That would be a good question. So,
but I'm banned from there, so we can't really ask too many questions to them. So
yeah, we won't go there right now, or that subject right now.
Oh,
but that does make you kind of wonder when you start going into some of the, and I hope anybody who's listening and wants to get into the paranormal community and wants to try it, start thinking outside the box. And that's one of the things we talked about the last couple of shows. When you first go into a place, go in there in the daylight. Look at things, because some things aren't going to look right, like they don't belong. Some people try to set up some old buildings with like old desks, and things, trying to make it think that they are originals, or just trying to have something from that era in there.
Well, they've got the doll room there, remember? Like, she would collect dolls from yard sales and everything else. There's one room that is just surrounded by dolls from all over the place. They have nothing to do with the building whatsoever.
Where,
at Post Town.
Oh, that part I didn't know.
Yeah, they have a doll room up on the second floor. And she would just gather them at yard sales and stuff and just bring them in. Well, I mean, there's probably over 100 dolls in just one room, one big room, all along the wall.
Do you think a doll has to be old to have something attached to it?
I don't think so. I think if something's going to attach to it, it doesn't matter how old the doll is or the object itself.
What do you think the chances if we take something? So, say I have something that's mine. Let's just use the Furby for a minute.
Okay.
Now that I've turned my back on it, because it's kind of freaking me out, because it's staring at me and I can't get to it to turn it around. If I were to take the Furby to a location and use it, what's the chance of something attaching to it and coming home with me?
Well, that's no different than us taking equipment. It does. I don't necessarily feel it has to be a doll. I feel anything you can take. Like when Beth brings her REM pod puppy.
True.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it has to be a doll. If it wants to connect to something and get the hell up out of that location and is desperate to get out of there, I think it can connect to anything.
Like Chucky.
Yeah.
Did you just snort?
Yeah, maybe. I'm thinking about the picture you posted.
What's that?
I'm thinking about the picture you posted.
Which one? Is that the one?
The one about quit making 80s movies or remaking 80s movies.
I thought maybe it was the one where, why do you scream every time I come out from underneath your bed? It scares me.
I don't know.
It hurts my feelings as a spirit.
Did you see the one that I posted? It was probably a couple days ago. It's got Michael Myers pouring a bowl of cereal for Chucky.
Shut up, Pete.
I forgot what it says. Something like "Eat your breakfast, you little shit," or something like that. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of haunted items.
How bad can psychic scars be? And how would they come out and manifest again? I mean, I'm a little bit different when it comes to, death doesn't bother me. It's not something that, I've helped pull people out of cars. I've helped clean up suicides. Cleaned up the stuff over in Saudi. And some people, it makes them very leery and eerie and like, I don't want to go, I can't go anywhere near there. And some people even have trouble going to funerals because you have to go close to a body, which is just now at that stage pretty much an empty shell.
Right.
But it's never bothered me. But I've never been infatuated with where I have to see it. I just know that, I guess in some aspects I look at it, it's a part of our life. It's a part of our life journey. We're all going to have to go through it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a closed casket because nobody wants to see how this is going to turn out.
I think that's the one thing that makes me leery of going to a funeral, even if it's like a close family member. Like, it all depends on how they passed, I guess.
What do you mean?
Say for instance, back when I was a junior in high school, I lost 2 friends on I-75 in a car accident. And, both of them were open caskets. And they were unrecognizable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you've got, God rest his soul, my 16-year-old cousin shot himself in the head playing Russian roulette up in Mansfield, Ohio. And he was an open casket.
Well, how did it look?
Jake, we have a bad echo right now.
We're getting a bunch of backfeed from you.
My mic was doing all sorts of weird stuff, so I think it's good to go now, though.
Okay.
But apparently he had shot sideways. Like, held it up to the side of his head and shot sideways. I mean, he didn't look much different, which I was expecting worse than what he looked like. You know what I mean? For being a headshot.
Yeah.
But it's like, those are the ones that I've mostly been to is open caskets, and they kind of freak me out, especially when it's my relative. But
does it depend on how well you knew him, or just in general?
I don't think that has anything to do with it. I mean, I've always been close to all of my cousins and stuff growing up before we all kind of got older and split off, different states. But him and his brother lived up here, and it was weird because he was supposed to come to our house for the weekend and ride dirt bikes with us the weekend that it happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that kind of freaked me out as it was, but he only had my brother and I, his brother, and then his dad and his stepmom at the funeral that was family. Like, nobody else could make it up because it was up here in Mansfield. But, I went to, I don't know if you guys heard the story about the little girl, Kinsley Kenner, up here, not far from my house, like Carlisle or Franklin or whatever in Ohio, where her mom's boyfriend had beat her. She ended up passing in the hospital. She was an open casket. And she looked like a tiny porcelain doll. Like,
really?
I don't know, it just, like, my hair on my arms standing up talking about it, because that's actually, the day of her viewing is the day I found out about Allie's condition. So, that day is the touchy subject. Yeah, I got the call at her viewing. But it's, I don't know, if it's open casket, it kind of creeps me out. I'll go, but they kind of creep me out a little bit. Just because I've been to so many open, I guess. I don't know. My great-grandma was an open casket, too, and my grandma took a picture of it. I don't know.
What is... Okay, I have a question. I saw that a lot over the last couple of years. People taking selfies with people in caskets.
Wait, what? That's a thing?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I didn't even know taking pictures of a body in a casket, an open casket at a funeral was a thing until my grandma did it.
Well, I guess I don't understand why. Well, that's how I want to remember them. Sleeping?
No, I almost wonder because it was, within the last 10 years that I'm aware of. Now, it could have come around before that as well. But I know within the last 10 years, it's been circulating around social media and stuff like that about how in Victorian era, when a family member was deceased, they would take family pictures with the deceased person in the pictures as if they were alive.
Yes.
You're talking about like the guy that he had, I don't know, he had a street bike. I seen one where they made it look like he was sitting on a chair with a cigarette and he had his leg crossed or whatever.
Well, no, these were way back. These were like...
Yeah, this is in Victorian era.
Oh, okay.
And so you're talking about...
I'm talking recently.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, I wonder if this taking pictures with the deceased is kind of a derivative off of that.
Oh, it could be.
Like a modern version of that, where people see that and they kind of, on a subconscious level, kind of latch onto it.
But these are people that are taking the pictures now and posting them on Facebook going, I spent my last few days with her, the last few minutes with her before we closed the casket and we buried her.
I think the world is just too hooked on freaking social media that stuff like that just needs to stay to themselves.
I agree.
True. That's kind of it goes into the whole point of, that's a very personal thing too.
Oh, yeah.
A family member, whether it's your brother, your daughter, your son, your uncle, that's very personal. If you go to something like who was, I knew a kid that I grew up with, we hung out a few times, and it's been 30 years and he passed away. Well, I knew him. I'm going to go pay my respects to the family because I knew the family.
Yeah.
It's still personal.
Right.
I believe that stuff you shouldn't be taking those pictures. That's my belief. If you want a picture of them, if they're that close to you, you should already had a picture of you and that person together, alive, hanging on your wall somewhere. So,
now see, I don't think when my grandpa passed, I don't know, probably 6-7 years ago, on my mom's side, I think his was a closed casket, and he just had a heart attack. But then when I investigated my mom's house before we moved out of it and then got him through the SB7, like, my mom bawled. She was like, you gotta go back. I'm like, Mom, all your shit's moved out. That would be breaking and entering now.
I'm pretty sure the family that lives there wouldn't like it.
But the coolest thing was, though, is how he responded, and then we're getting ready to leave, and then we picked up a female voice on the recorder saying, "Are you leaving?" And it made my mom feel like, because my aunt had passed in a motorcycle accident. A lot of bad stuff has happened in my family.
Wow.
But, yeah, she passed when I was really little in a motorcycle accident, and it made me feel like she was with my grandpa and her were together again. And it kind of gave my mom like a little bit of closure, I guess, that he wasn't alone.
Well, that's a good thing, though. So, I mean, I know that when I was doing my AIT in the military, and I knew I was getting sent overseas, my grandma had sent me a message wanting to know if I was going to be able to come see her before I left. And I told her, I said, I don't know. I said, things are getting closer, and this was right before Desert Storm kicked off.
Right.
And we pretty much got told, hey, unless it's an emergency leave, no one's going anywhere. And I kind of told her that. She goes, "Oh, we'll figure out a way." And 2 days later, she died. And I got to come home and say goodbye to her.
Mm-hmm.
So
she figured out a way.
Yeah, she sure did.
Not always.
It's not the way you wanted,
the
but
circumstance
you
would like it under.
No, and when my grandma passed away, it was. She was at home. She was surrounded by people because my family used to go over and have coffee with my grandma every evening, and just sit there and talk with her. And she was pouring coffee in my dad's cup and fell over dead.
Oh,
wow!
She was doing what she wanted. She was taking care of the family.
Right.
So,
okay, I'm gonna sort of shift gears just a little bit because I want to go back to Bill. Just a little bit ago, you were talking about how your grandmother sent you a message if you're going to be able to come see her, and said that she'll find a way.
Yep.
And forgive me if this seems a little crass, but
I wouldn't have it any other way.
There's a line very similar to that in the Netflix TV show Haunting of Hill House. When I don't know, so if you've never seen it,
kind of twisted. That movie's kind of twisted.
Well, it is, but when all the siblings come together and the dad for their sister's funeral, they bring up that same idea, how the sibling wanted all of them to be together, and she was trying to figure out a way to get them all together.
Right.
And then she died. Now, the situation surrounding all of that, think about it in terms of it being a TV show, so, it was a little more dramatic than what it needed to be, but that same idea, she found a way to get everybody there together.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was just kind of making that connection, because it's one thing when we do that on a very personal level, like what happened with you, Bill, but then we do see references to that in pop culture as well, if we look hard enough.
Oh, I'm sure.
Sorry, I had to get up and move the Furby.
Are you serious?
Damn right he did. He was staring at me. Sorry.
Jeez.
But I see what you're saying, Jake. It's a weird. It makes you think back and look at things as we're always going to find a way to take care of what we need to take care of.
Right.
And if finding a way to have someone come home means taking, that it's close to your time, and there's always that belief that some people, as they get older or even younger, they know when their time is coming. They can sense it. They can feel it. Did she know it, and that was it? And just okay, or was she holding out for something, and maybe holding out for me to say, I don't know if I'm going to get to be able to, and that gave her the chance to, okay, I'm going to find a way to get you home.
Right.
And then she did. So, I don't know.
World works in mysterious ways, guys.
Yes, it does.
A lot more mysterious than we all know, and we all think, and we can all prove. There's things out there, like, I don't understand, and one thing I've never understood, and one I need to know more about, is, I guess, lack of saying it, I'm just going to say it, is poltergeist.
Well, yeah, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, if entities have the ability to, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? More or less appear in front of us, then why are they stronger than other ones? Is it because they were stronger willed in life when they were alive? Or is it that because they have that much energy because they were that bad in life and they're stuck between the realms?
Well, I mean, just from the sound of the way that you're explaining it, Bill, it's almost like you're explaining it from the perspective of the movie Poltergeist. Because that was how they were represented in the movie. But now if you...
Okay, hold on real quick. A little bit of beans, but I've never seen that movie.
You've never seen Poltergeist?
Nope.
But my point is, what everyone equates a poltergeist to is derived from that movie. Whether you've seen it or not, someone in your circle that you've interacted with has, and in some way, shape, or form, that understanding has now made its way to you. Now, if you ever listen to Amy Allen talk about poltergeists, okay, if you don't know who Amy Allen is, she's a very famous physical medium. And she, and I've heard other people talk about it in this way as well, they refer to poltergeist as not necessarily being an entity in the way that a regular spirit would be. It's almost like the idea of what a poltergeist is now shifting into sort of being man-made. If that makes any sense.
Like, not made up, but I don't know the word I'm looking for.
What is the definition of poltergeist?
Let me look it up.
Well, no, don't even look it up because I know this one by heart. Poltergeist is actually a German word for noisy spirit. Is all it is.
That's what I've heard too, yeah.
I've heard them referred to it in that way, but I'm just saying that now when you hear people talk about it in the paranormal community, it seems like it's taking on this definition where instead of it being a separate entity or a separate spirit, it's now taking on a definition where it's manifesting due to the people that are in that environment. So instead of it being a spirit, it's more of just a manifestation of energy and emotions in that environment. And so they start to talk about it in terms of psychokinesis.
Yep.
And they talk about being psychokinetic. Now, I'm not really sure how that's different than telekinesis.
Well, poltergeist, the activity from a poltergeist there hasn't been a lot of evidence to show that they are very harmful to people. Most often, they can be destructive, bothersome, or malicious. But they really don't. I mean, they'll make objects move, make loud noises,
Or throw them at your head.
throw bricks at your head, or throw you down a flight of steps for no damn reason whatsoever. Thank you, whoever you were that did that. Stay there where you were at. But it's
You're Furby.
freaking Furby. This thing starts dancing. I'm throwing it. So, but I mean, when you're looking at a poltergeist act, like people say, we have a poltergeist because I saw it. It walked up to me and it punched me and it hurt me. Well, you're not talking about a poltergeist at that stage,
Right.
Because a
Better
poltergeist
than just a spirit right then.
yeah. And why? Okay, so that's a good one. Then what's the difference between just being a poltergeist and being a downright ass of a spirit that wants to come up and make sure you can't sleep by crawling into bed with you, or like the lady overseas that married the pirate and now is getting ghost pirate and getting a divorce now. Crack whore.
Wonder who's divorcing him.
Probably the same person that married him.
Oh shit!
I think they're getting a divorce because she doesn't like the size of his peg leg.
Trading you in, honey.
Trading you in for a new model.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going for the 2x4.
Oh my God.
Good lord.
And why do we call all ghosts ghosts? Why do we call them ghosts? Why don't we call them...
I don't know.
I mean, what is it?
I mean, when I ask questions and stuff, when I try to reach out to the paranormal, I don't consider them ghosts or spirits. I just ask if there's anyone in this room. I don't say, are there any spirits here that would like to communicate with us?
So you don't walk in and you go, spirits, are you here?
No. I treat them like
We'll
they're
take
one of us.
Come see me in the Winnebago.
Oh my
Okay, so
God.
here's what it says, because you know me, I looked it up. So what it says is ghost is the English representative of the usual West Germanic word for supernatural being.
What if they're not supernatural, they're just natural? What makes them super?
The fact that they can go through walls. Come on, Bill.
Can a natural being do it too?
Well, I think it comes from, so if you break down the word supernatural, it means beyond or outside of natural occurrences. Okay, so for something to be considered supernatural, just like when we use the word paranormal, it has to be something outside of what normally or naturally happens if left to its own devices.
Okay, but let me break that down even further. You're saying that it's not natural. They've been around a lot longer than we have. Why are we considering them not natural? Because that's what we've deemed it as in our own minds. That having spirits around is not natural. I think it's part of the natural process.
You would think by now that it would be considered
To be
natural.
honest, I think what it comes down to is the... I'm going to get a little bit scientific here.
Of course.
When we talk about things that are natural, it's things that we can essentially use the five senses, right? Touch, smell, taste, hear, and sight. So for something to be natural, that means it's doing something of its own accord, just like to say someone's acting natural, right? They're acting the way that they normally would without any external stimuli or changes in their environment.
Right.
When you start putting super, that means beyond. So that means, now when we're talking about things being supernatural, that means it's something that's happening beyond what it would do without changes in its environment. So if we talk about a supernatural being, we're talking about a being that exists beyond the way that we perceive how it should be existing.
There's the word I'm looking for, though.
Perception.
What our perception? Because for them, being a spirit now is natural. It's what they are. So why are we considering them supernatural? Because it's not what it's outside of what we deem as being natural.
It's a fancy word for saying we don't know how or why it works the way that it does.
All right, you got me on that one.
Then that opens up a whole nother argument going, well, if science can't explain it, is it automatically supernatural? Yada, yada, yada. We can have that conversation another time. But it's this idea that when we deem things as supernatural or as paranormal, it's because we can't explain it. That doesn't mean that we won't be able to at some point. It's just we do not have the knowledge at that particular point in time to have or to be able to explain what's occurring or why it's occurring.
So when we're looking at and now that I can use it because I understand it, a ghost hunt or a paranormal investigation, we're looking at it wrong. We're looking for things that aren't natural just because it's our own eyes. because being
Because we
supernatural,
don't physically see it all the time or something.
it's not always there with us. We need to be trying to look past that and look into tech, for lack of better terms, the realm that they're in, going, okay, what would be natural? What is natural for them now?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to go beyond what we see, touch, smell, taste, and feel. We need to be,
That's what I like about this field, though, is you don't know everything going into it.
and
You're constantly learning and evolving. That it keeps us interested.
I like that. I like looking at it that way. I think that changes the kind of the perspective, because I'm always behind the camera. I'm always looking at the screen. I'm always looking at things. So I need to be trying to figure out a different way of looking at things each time we go into someplace or we go to start doing something. Taking a step back, because I'm trying to ask them to do things that would be normal for us. Normal for us now. Can you shut a door? Can you push that? Well, they're looking at it going, why the hell would I shut the door when I can walk through it?
Right.
I don't need to do it. Okay, so if it's natural for you to, when you walk through that door, to make the door rattle a little bit, can you do that for us? Maybe that's what we need to be looking at. Is it natural for you to fart when you walk by me?
What if you ask them, like, is there anything you can do to prove to us that you're here? And then whatever they feel is natural to them, they can try and do that.
And I think that's what we're starting to see a little bit more of in this field. I think we're starting to see less of the, can you throw an object across the room? And because, at least from my experience, what I'm seeing a lot more of is, or hearing, I guess, rather, hearing a lot more of is people saying, can you do something to let us know you're here?
Right.
All right, I hate to end this because this has been an awesome discussion. We need to pick this back up later on, but we got about 30 seconds left. I want to thank Jake. Thank you for dropping in and being with us. You're always welcome to come on back here.
Of course.
Shannon, love being with you. You're awesome. You're perfect.
When I get to be here. Yes.
Yeah,
I love you too, buddy.
I want to thank Jimmy for being in the background, and we want to thank everybody for being out there with us tonight. Y'all take care. Be safe. Keep your head down. And if you got questions for us, give us a shout. We'll try to answer them for you. Other than that, y'all, we'll see you later. Have a great evening, and we'll see you guys in the dark. Talk to you later.